Hi, it's Dave. Today we've got a special live stream going on. Elon Musk tweeted that Tesla has a greater than zero chance of becoming the biggest company in the world. And he deleted a tweet that later said, who knows, it could be in a few months, but I don't know what he's referring to. It could be full self-driving, it could be valuation. But in this video, I want to share kind of my thoughts on how I think actually Tesla can become the biggest company in the world. What are the dynamics? What's the basic valuation model? And it's going to be a fun episode. All right, check it out. All right, so first, let's go ahead and let's check out actually the tweets that we're talking about today. And the first tweet here is Elon Musk last night, actually this morning at 3 a.m. He says, I think there's a greater than 0% chance Tesla could be the biggest company in the world. That's the idea here. And this is from a tweet from Omar from Holmar's blogs. And he says, guys, I'm telling you, full self-driving is the biggest thing ever. Super bullish on this. And we've had Omar on our show for a few times. He says, no one gets it, but I know what I've seen. This is a big effing deal. Tesla is going to be bigger than Apple at Elon Musk. So what does Elon mean by this, by saying Tesla is going to become the biggest company in the world, at least a greater than zero chance? Well, let's look at what the biggest companies in the world are by market cap. And what you see is you see Apple at the top of the list at $2 trillion. And it goes down. Actually, you have, Tesla is number 9. And so Tesla is already a top 10, right, company in the world. And in the previous times, several years ago, Elon Musk has said that he thinks Tesla will become one of the biggest, one of the largest companies, one of the most valuable companies in the world. But here, this morning, Elon is saying he thinks that Tesla could become the biggest. At least there's a decent chance. He also had a tweet that was deleted, and Toon replied to Elon's tweet, and Toon said, love the direction of that arrow, right? The greater than zero arrow. And Elon Musk said, probably within a few months. And so, so this is kind of controversial. What does Elon mean here? First off, Elon can be a little bit optimistic with timeline. In 2018, Elon said that there was going to be this imminent short squeeze with Tesla stock that would just, kind of destroy the shorts. And it took a few years. It took a couple years before that happened. And so sometimes Elon can, jump ahead of the gun. He could be meaning that full self-driving is going to be coming within a few months. But also it could mean that people could be realizing that there's going to be a huge valuation jump when full self-driving is fully released. What I want to do here is I want to work out the dynamics here and to give you two simple valuation models that will put Tesla as the most valuable company in the world. So the benchmark is $2 trillion right now with Apple. And over time, let's say 5 or 10 years down the road, that you have inflation, you have growing profits and revenue. So Apple could be much higher, let's say $3 or $4 trillion. But what will it take for Tesla to become the most valuable company in the world? So here's model number 1, and I'm going to explain it super simple. There's going to be a model number 2. So model number 1 is purely off of full self-driving, autonomous driving robotaxis. In today's world, there are roughly about 10 trillion miles driven every year, and the average cost per mile is about 70 cents. That includes maintenance and gas and the cost of the car, amortized, etc. Now, with autonomous driving, you basically have the opportunity, especially with electric cars as well, because it's much cheaper to operate. You have the opportunity to drive down the cost per mile from 70 cents down to 25 cents and still make a significant profit because the cost of operating an electric car is so minimal. When the cost of per mile to drive or to be driven goes down to under 30 cents, let's say to 25 cents, there's going to be a big increase of demand of mobility and what people do to be transported to different places. And so the likely case is mobility, or the number of miles, is going to double or triple or even more. And plus you have a large developing world that's coming up as well. And so if there are 30 trillion miles that are driven in the autonomous driving world, and the cost per mile is so much more compelling with, let's say, driving an autonomous or being ridden in in an autonomous driven vehicle for 25 cents a mile. What happens is Tesla becomes a software platform company. And they can take several cents per mile as a platform profit. And so, for example, out of the 25 cent per mile that is charged in the autonomous network, Tesla could take a 5 cent, let's say, net profit. And maybe it takes another few cents to run the software and the whole platform. But let's say their net profit is 5 cents per mile, which is reasonable. Let's say 20% of the cost per mile. What happens is with 20 trillion miles, with 30 trillion miles, that's $1.5 trillion in profit. So obviously Tesla's not going to take that entire $1.5 trillion in profit because there are many geographies in the world. There are going to be different players at different points, etc. But let's say, what is the total market cap of all the companies in the world that will be in that autonomous driving, let's say, space, that market? What kind of market cap will they accrue? Now, if you give a 30 multiple off of this $1.5 trillion in profit, now this is going to be a bit controversial, but let's say hypothetically it's a 30 multiple because there could be adjacent markets actually, that it's not just taking a person from point A to B, but you can have advertising, you can have different, logistics, you can have different stuff that's built upon the transportation network. So 30 times multiple off of a $1.5 trillion in profit, I think actually there could be a case for that. In that case, that would be a $45 trillion in market cap that is realized or accrued to companies in this autonomous driving space. I'm not saying right now. I'm saying at the point where it becomes more mature and this becomes fully realized, or at least close to realization, I'm saying that there could be potentially $45 trillion in market cap in this arena. Now, this is astounding and this is crazy in some ways, because if you think about it, the S&P 500, the market cap of all the companies in the S&P 500 today, right now, is about $32 trillion. Now, this is the 500, some of the 500s, most of the 500 largest companies in the world, all in one index, they're comprising just $32 trillion of market cap. And here I'm saying, hey, there's this huge market opportunity that could be bigger than the entire market cap of the S&P 500. It sounds out of this world. It sounds kind of a bit crazy, but this is the potential. I'm not saying this is 100% going to happen, but I'm saying this is the potential of how lucrative the autonomous driving market can become, because it's such a massive market. So a lot of times, the size of companies are largely determined in some ways by the size of the fishbowl or the total addressable market. And that's why when you might have a great company, but they might be making a product just in a small market. And no matter how great they are, they're just not valued that high because their potential is just capped. But you can have another company that's in a huge market and their potential is not capped because they can grow and grow and grow. Now, the problem with huge markets is they're often saturated and they're often, just crowded by dominant players, by big tech players, by tons of startups. And so it's extremely hard to pick the winner in a new up and coming market that's going to be huge and dominant. So it's not a common thing where you can find a multi-trillion-dollar market where there is a clear leader, right? And even that, some people will say, oh, Tesla's not an elite, but hey, in my due diligence, I found that Tesla is way ahead of the pack. They have, in my opinion, one of the clearest, if not the only clear path to true autonomy, right, with vehicles in the next few years. Now, let's take a little bit more conservative number. And of course, all this stuff isn't completely conservative because it's hypothetical potential, but let's bring down the total miles in the autonomous driving kind of world in the future to 20 trillion miles rather than the 30 trillion. And let's have the platform net kind of profit fee at 5 cents per mile. So it's pretty reasonable, 5 cents out of 25 cents per mile. If you think about it, if at 25 cents a mile, let's say you're going 10,000 miles a year. That's what, $2,500 a year, $200 a month. For $200 a month, you're not going to be able to buy an IC car and gas and maintenance and tires and all this stuff to go 10,000 miles for $200 a month. It just isn't possible. That's why at 25 cents, autonomous driving services, transportation as a service with electric car will decimate IC cars, right? And so it really is a price point thing. But let's say at 20 trillion miles of autonomous driving at 5 cents net profit. That's $1 trillion in net profits. I'm not talking about revenue here, right? Revenue actually would be a lot higher, right? 5 times higher. I'm talking about net profit here. And this is pure profit here, right? You give a 20 times multiple, let's say you bring down the 30 to 20, and still you have a $20 trillion market cap, right? That's realized or accrued from the companies that take on this autonomous driving field. So what does this mean for Tesla? And a lot of it is, what percent of that market will Tesla take? Will they take 1% of that autonomous driving market, or will they take 100%? And that's the cool thing about investing. It's about, having some insight, taking some risks, saying, hey, this is what I assume, this is my hypothesis. It could be wrong, but Elon Musk actually recently said that he thinks, hey, there's certain fields because manufacturing can't ramp up as fast. Let's say you're running a software company, you just need more servers, right? And boom, you can like double, triple, 10x, 100x your usage rather quickly. However, with cars, you have to ramp up these factories, battery supplies, just supply chains. It takes a long time to ramp up this stuff. And so because of that, Elon Musk was saying that, hey, they could take maybe 25%, right, of that autonomous driving market. So if they take 25% of that autonomous driving market, and let's say rather than $45 trillion in total market cap, let's say we brought it down to $20 trillion, right, that the autonomous driving network would be attributed to. So in that case, 25% is still $5 trillion. And so the question is, like, $5 trillion in market cap. Investors are typically forward-looking, meaning it's not necessarily that Tesla has to really get to this place where they're really taking 25% of the mature market, right, of 20 trillion miles driven with autonomous driving. It's not that, because investors are forward-looking. You look at the example last year with COVID, the economy crashed, but investors were forward-looking, looking at the companies that would be doing well, right? And being resilient. And I think people don't realize this, is that once it becomes more evident that Tesla is in the lead, once it becomes more evident that the full self-driving market is huge, right? And it's just a new market, right? Investors will catch on, but this is the tricky part. People are going to say, oh, it's going to be this year or this time, and it's all hypothesis. It's all hypotheticals right now. And that's the cool thing. It's up to each individual to make up their own mind. So anyways, this was the first model of how Tesla can become the biggest, largest, most valuable company in the world, just purely off of autonomous driving, right? And making some assumptions to that. All right, so a second model for how Tesla can become the biggest company in the world. So I love these simple models, right? Because sometimes the simplest model, like with the least amount of variables, actually you could really grasp it more clearly. For example, this model with autonomous driving was, out of 20 trillion miles, you take, let's say 5 cents. So let's say out of 20 trillion complete autonomous driven miles, Tesla takes 5 trillion and they get 5 cents per mile, right? So that's, I think it's, but you times that by a 20 multiple or something, right? And you'll get about $5 trillion of market cap value. I like those simple type of models. Let's take another example of Tesla with cars. So I think you can kind of leave out the per mile and try a different angle. So let's say hypothetically, Tesla delivers 20 million cars in 2030. Now, Elon Musk has stated that this is his goal. And let's say hypothetically that Tesla gets $10,000 of profit per car. Some skeptics obviously would be like, you're crazy. How can they get $10,000 profit per car? But this is assuming that Tesla's full self-driving solution works amazingly and they keep in the lead. So there are assumptions with this. And let's say we completely just, remove the robotaxi element and say that, hey, let's put all of the full self-driving, the autonomous driving profits, let's include it in the per cost, per car kind of unit economics, right? So we can kind of move all of the profit, let's say, into the car. So let's say even the lifetime of the car or whatever, I mean, it could just be upfront or it could be a monthly charge. But let's say for each car, it's about $10,000 of profit. And I think this is actually rather conservative because if it really is, autonomous driving, and this is a huge value add, like I think you can get a lot more than $10,000 profit per car that you sell. I mean, this could be, double, triple, even more per car. So I'm trying to give rather a conservative estimate based on some assumptions. So I'm saying these assumptions that Tesla is in the lead, their autonomous driving solution works, etc. It's not going to be conservative to some people. It's going to be, those are bold assumptions. But I'm saying is if those assumptions are true, the 10,000 profit probably would be conservative. So what does that mean? 20 million cars times $10,000 profit per car, that's $20 billion in profit. Now, if you give a 30 multiple off of that, that's $6 trillion. If you give a 20 multiple off of $20 billion in profit, that's $4 trillion. So even with that, right, even with 20 million cars making $10,000 profit per year, including, all the full self-driving, autonomous driving, value in that, Tesla still gets, a $46 trillion that market cap off of a 20 to 30 multiple, just off of that. And this is not including Tesla Energy, right? This any of these models that I shared. It's not including any adjacent markets like logistics or food services or different services, advertising, different stuff that can happen in the car, etc. This is just purely looking at one angle of the business, whether it's robotaxi per mile or autos per car, and trying to get some basic kind of models of what kind of revenues and profits and multiples can be given. Now, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with all of this, and that's the whole point. If it was a for sure deal, then everybody would be jumping on and understanding this. But the point is there's lots of variables here. There's a ton of people first that don't even think that autonomous driving is going to come in our lifetime. And then second, there's a ton of people who don't even think autonomous driving can be solved without LiDAR, right? And then there's a ton of people that think that, hey, Tesla is overvalued, it's a scam, etc. There's so many, different angles with how to think about this and how to approach this. And it's for each person to decide. In my opinion, through my due diligence, it's clear to me that Tesla has a very clear lead that they are going to be able to solve autonomous driving through vision, through their neural net software and hardware and their whole approach. And that Tesla is actually getting closer and closer. And I think what's tricky is that autonomous driving and full self-driving, as long as it's worse than human driving, it is basically discounted because it's like people think it's terrible because one accident can be devastating, right? But the moment that full self-driving actually becomes better, let's say even 2 times better than a human driver, then that's the point where there's this massive realization. It's like, oh my gosh, it's here. Like this thing actually works. And then from that point on, the rate of improvement continues to increase so rapidly where it just can become a real dominant technology. The question is obviously the rollout. How will full self-driving roll out? What's the timeline in terms of what markets, robotaxis, what will Tesla charge for customers who buy the car versus for people, for Tesla putting cars on the network? Will Tesla put their own cars on the network? There's a lot of question marks that are ahead for this. I think the overall gist is, going back to kind of Elon's tweet, is when he sees full self-driving, what he's saying is he's extremely bullish on it. And he's saying this is going to most likely lead to valuation in the company because this is a lucrative, huge addressable market that's just astounding in size. It's just, you don't come across, markets that are multi-trillion dollars, right, in profit, potential profit very often. And usually they're overtaken. There's hyper competitiveness. There's just so many factors that it's extremely difficult to pick the winner. So anyways, I wanted to share this quick live stream with you guys and just share my thoughts out there. And encourage you guys to do your own homework, make your own assumptions, right? Don't depend on me or someone else's opinion telling you, what to think per se. This is stuff that is so complex and there's so many variables that I really think that it takes an ownership to do this. I am off on a 4-day camping trip today, and but I've got a ton of videos that I have lined up that will be released. I have 2 more videos from James Dalma talking about modeling when Tesla, like full self-driving, gets validated by regulators, and a second, how Tesla full self-driving can be modeled in a per mile basis. I've got interview by James Stevenson, who talks about also Tesla um, valuation. I've got an interview by Kelvin Yang. He's kind of focused on Tesla China, debunking the attacks that are going on in Tesla China. And I have an interview that I've recorded with Angie Lau, a former Bloomberg anchor who's focusing on cryptocurrency and covering that area. And I did an extensive interview with her. So all of these interviews have actually been recorded just in the past few days, and they'll be released one or two per day for the next several days. Don't feel overwhelmed with all the content. I try to timestamp, at least my wife does, when she has time, and it'll help you to just, you can skip through the content, the outline, to look for interesting topics. And yeah, I'm hoping to actually, starting next week, midweek, I'll probably start to do some more shorter videos and more focused videos throughout the day, trying to encapsulate some of my thoughts on investing, on Tesla, what's going on the markets. But anyways, yeah, thanks guys for all the great comments in the live stream. And yeah, thanks. I'll have a great time definitely camping, and I appreciate all you guys' support and help. All right, talk to you guys later. Bye.